Shield of Faith. A first level abjuration. A shimmering field appears and surrounds a creature of your choice within range, granting it a +2 bonus to AC for the duration. Nice. But how am I going to craft that? Hey there, welcome back to Tabletop Witchcraft. This week I wanted to create a really cool, simple, fun, and easy spell effect that you can create in just a couple of hours for your game table, minus a little bit of dry time with some Sculpting mold. I got the idea from a winning submission from my July craft off from Scott, who's a member of the Coven over on Patreon. He had a really cool dwarven chamber that he created with a spellcaster in it, and he used some UV resin and some flashing, flickering blue LEDs, and it came out really awesome. I wanted to make something very similar, but I wanted to have it modular so that you can place it and use it pretty much anywhere on the game table. So this has a lot of uses, and I'm going to show you how to build it right now. So let's go grab some supplies, and let's get crafting. Alright, so we're going to start this video out with making a support to make our bubble. And to do that, we're going to take a yogurt container and pretty much anything you can get that's going to be roughly 3 inches in diameter. I found that this diameter works well for, a standard size miniature to fit underneath. So, you can use anything you want here. I think everybody knows that I love my yogurt containers. I use them for a lot of different things, this being one of them. So we're going to trace that out onto a piece of chipboard, and notice that I'm doing it right in the middle of this chipboard. It's because we want this as like a little platform to be able to create our bubble. So this is just a little practice tee or a little softball that I use with my daughter, and we're just going to slide a few yogurt containers underneath those to hold it up in the air. Then we'll take a little bit of plastic wrap and place it over the ball. Now the cool thing about this craft is you can make these orbs, magic spell effect, whatever you want, in any size, right? So what I want to be doing is making one that's going to act as a spell for my next D&D campaign, but you can also use these and make them to look like, a bubble underneath the water or objective markers or anything. So they could be any size you want. Now once you've wrapped the clear wrap around the ball, you're going to take some of this UV resin, and you want to grab a really plain paintbrush. This is a little freebie I got with a face painting kit for my kids. And you're just going to place that smoothly around the whole surface, smear it on there, and you're going to want to do a few different coats of this. So smearing it around, don't worry about what you get on the base. We're going to trim a little bit of that in just a few minutes. So get a nice coat of it around the ball, then hit it up with this UV light, and it's going to really set it up pretty quick. Now, the one thing about UV resin is sometimes it tends to dry a little tacky. All I did was stick this outside for a couple hours in the sun, and it dried really hard, and it was awesome. So I recommend doing that. The UV light works nice to set it up initially, but putting it outside on a really sunny day really does a number on it. Now, wearing some nitrile gloves when we're working with resin, we're just going to basically pop that ball right out from the mold, and we're good to go. Now this is actually a little satisfying, taking the scissors to this and cutting the excess saran wrap off the edge. So we'll cut that off, leave about, I'd say, a ½ an inch of saran wrap around the base. That's what we're going to use to lock in the mold here in just a minute. Now this was what I did before I decided to put it out in the sun. Now it was a little tacky, and to eliminate that, I was like, well, I'll just put some gloss Mod Podge over it. That will harden up nice and solid, and it won't have that tacky feeling. So you can also do this if you're doing this project in the middle of the winter, you don't have really good sun. You can do this step right here, and it worked out awesome. But when I was done with this, it was still a little soft, so I put another layer of UV resin on it. That's when I put it outside, and it hardened up really nice. Now we're going to work on the rim of this craft right here, and it's just going to be a little bit of Sculpting mold. You don't need a lot, and as we place it on here, we're going to put the whole thing on some parchment paper. And you can see that little lip of the saran wrap that we left is going to act as like a little, lip there to kind of hold a Sculpting mold in place. making sure we get it down into the crevice around this little bubble. You know, leave about, I'd say, 3/4 of an inch around the whole thing. Now you can see it peels off real easy on that parchment paper. We're going to set that aside, and then we can just trim off the excess. Now if you don't like that little gap you see there between the table and the Sculpting mold, at this stage you can add just a little bit more Sculpting mold around the base and you're all set. Here's the paint scheme we're going to do for the muddy base. Now keep in mind, you can do this for an underwater base, for you know, in a dungeon somewhere. This whole craft took me probably 2 hours to make. So you can make a whole bunch of these with all different bases, and actually it's probably something that I'm going to do here in the not too distant future. Now grabbing some of this World War Scenics layering spray adhesive, we're going to grab some static grass, our applicator, and I'm going to add some grass to this because honestly the majority of my campaigns where I take place out in the wild roaming around. So for this video that's what I wanted to do, but you know, I'm probably going to make a couple for a dungeon. I'll probably do a couple for an underwater adventure as well. That would go along really well with my underwater tiles. Just moving away some of that static grass, we can reveal some of that World War Scenics adhesive spray, along with the adhesive on the back of these little flowers and the super glue I'm using. They're gonna dry or harden in there like a rock, so we'll be all set with that. Then I just took some natural stuff that I found when I was out on vacation with my kids. I have a bunch of this stuff just sitting around, so I'm gonna add some more, you know, vegetation to the build. And I've angled them out and away from the orb a little bit to make it look like it's getting pushed away from it after the spell was cast. Alright, now for our lighting effect. We're going to take an LED strip, a little bit of Vallejo blue ink, and we're going to dab it right over each LED. That's going to give a nice blue hue once we turn this on. And then as you can see, we pop the battery in, we get a nice blue hue, and I really like the way this looked. And as I put the battery in, I'm like, yeah, this might be a little bit of a pain in the butt to turn on and off during play. So I just soldered in a little switch. I'll put a link up above to a video where I show you how to do this with a little diagram. Super easy. Don't get worried because you're seeing a soldering iron. This takes about 2 seconds, and you'll have a nice switch to access the light. Now I just measured the diameter of the bubble, hot gluing it to the correct shape. And then I had a little bit of this saran wrap that was in the way, so taking these little nippers right here, just cut off what you don't need, and then we can actually hot glue this LED strip right into place. And I like the way that some of the LEDs looked from the outside in, but if you don't like that look, you can actually take some clear plastic and wrap the LED strip to have more of a soft glow as well. And as you can see, all I'm doing is hot gluing the switch and the battery pack and everything right into here. And if you want, you could actually put the battery pack into the Sculpting mold so you won't see it at all. But to be honest, it's really hard to even see that battery through the bubble. And that's it. About a 2-hour craft and you got a really cool piece of terrain or a spell for your next game session. Alright, so this craft has a ton of playable options. I know I'm selling it here as the Shield of Faith, but it could be used as a bunch of different spells by changing the light color up on it, changing the base where you can have this be an objective marker, where let's say players are under the water and they have to reach these bubbles of oxygen to stay alive while they're playing. All kinds of different things. So get creative and keep that in mind when you're crafting this. Now you can also support me over on Patreon. That's where you can join the Coven, you can join the Contractor tier, and you'll also gain access to the next craft off where you can get a chance to maybe have your craft shown in a video of mine as well. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to see maybe for the next spell effect that I try to tackle here on the channel. And until next time, I'll see you around.